Welcome to the King's birthday edition of the Rant. I'm Sly.
And it was a disaster, Spook.
Spook, were you surprised by the result?
Yes, I was surprised Hoskinelli can play football.
What did you think going into this game?
Well, I didn't
compared
go to the
to
game.
what we got?
What did I think going in?
Yeah, I mean, do you think it was going to be... I thought it was going to be just a tussle. It'll be like a 2-3 goal. I thought it'd be like the Bulldogs game.
I think I had I mean, based on their performance the previous week against the Freo under-12s, where they got pulverised, I was kind of hopeful that form would come into this game, and I wasn't disappointed in the end. I probably thought we could either win or lose it.
Really? That's courageous. It's courageous.
I'd like to have it. Why don't you call me Brayshaw for the rest of the interview? Interview. It's not an interview. It's a show.
Yeah, this is going well. I really, you look at like Nick Dacos is well held for the most part.
It wasn't. It's the era of the taggers coming back, apparently, according to the media. It's revolutionised the modern game, the tagging.
Yeah, going backwards. Gorn's just a beast in the ruck, so we're never going to win the ruck, particularly without Mason Cox there, who tends to worry him a little bit with the height.
Do you know what else he's a beast at? Being on the receiving end of all our kicks.
Yeah. I know that.
Are you one of the Beatles?
We'll talk about that. So you had like a couple of players down, but then Hoskin Elliott in the forward line did a really good job on May.
He did, didn't he? I mean, I think Fly talked about this, just to go off on a tangent for a second, but
to talk about the game's a tangent.
Apparently, I mean, we didn't have time today to watch the press conference, but apparently he talked a fair bit about praised the assistant coaches for the tactical work they did in breaking that game apart. And I don't think you could exemplify that any better in the way in which Hos King played on May. Just dragged him everywhere.
He dragged him around.
Held him up the ground and all sorts. He really fucked May over something shocking. Did May get angry about anything? I think there was a moment where he got angry.
He's always angry, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you get the return of Nathan Krueger.
Return of the King.
The return of the King. So the King's back. Thank you very much.
How fucking good was he?
He was brilliant. He attacked contests with just intensity. I was surprised actually quick and the agile he is, because there was times like when they had the ball, he was just going ping. It was like looking at the Krueger the way he was running around trying to apply pressure.
Yeah, Foxy, I think today sent a stat through that he was on average or whatever it is they measure on one of the apps. Overall fastest on the ground.
Why would Foxy be the fastest on the ground?
No, he wasn't. It was probably something he had to eat over there. But no, Krueger was had the most highest average speed, I suppose. How do they fucking even measure that?
I don't know.
Was there someone there with a
it's probably the GPS
speed gun, the coppers?
It's probably the GPS they're working out how they're covering distance.
You probably gave some thought to that.
Yeah, in the half a second you mentioned...
I thought they had the dandy dollar dash on it at the break, and they just had a bit of a sprint.
The one thing I really liked about Krueger...
Just one thing?
Yeah, is... Except for that one in the pocket that he marked, he led straight, so he really straightened them up. And there was a couple of times where, there was a mark off, kicked it over his head at one stage, coming out of the
because he was
centre.
moving too fast, you think?
Yeah, but then, and also Finlay McRae kicked it to his side, but it was like he just gave a direct lead and did it with such, I don't want to be bad-mouthing Ash Johnson, but Ash Johnson, you should watch that, the way he really just attacked every contest.
I think there's every chance Ash Johnson will be watching a fair bit of it.
But just the way, he really led, showed... I don't know if that's a natural aptitude for a forward, but he looked like a forward because he just sort of kept commanding the ball.
What use is he going to be to us then?
Oh, well, it's an interesting one too. I mean, I'll look at that a little bit later, but I just thought, geez, he could not have a more invaluable addition to the side.
He was really, really good. There was a moment, I'm pretty certain it was in the last quarter, there was... on the TV, the ball kicked and they did that tight shot on the pack where they're looking for who's going to take the contestant. And there was a blur to the right of the screen, and it was just Krueger that flew. I mean, he obviously mistimed it, but he flew with such speed it just went whoosh from one side of the screen to the other. And I think there was an impact crater, and I think there was a ship from Krypton at the end of the crater. It was just, I've never seen anyone move sort of that size moves that deceptively quick.
He ping-ponging around. He looked like McCreary at times. And I totally lost what I was going to say there.
I think you look like McCreary.
No, actually, SEN interview he also did. I don't know if you heard that, but he talked about pre-season, sort of Darcy Moore took him inside and said, you probably have to pick and choose a little bit of which contest you're going to throw yourself into. And he sort of just joked that he was injuring our own players the way he attacks contests. So they were just sort of saying that, and I actually did see the press conference because I did research, so there. But, Fly also said, if, the one thing we'll get from him is a contest. So if you can keep him upright.
Oh, that's going to be the key thing. I mean, I love what I saw and I want to see more of it. Just keep yourself injury free, mate, please. Please.
See, people call him fragile. I don't actually think he's fragile. I think just he's had a bad run because it's like I said, we've had to talk about this before. He did the shoulder, they tried to nurse him through it, and he did it again. So it wasn't 2 injuries, it was 1 injury. And then last year they brought him back when he just wasn't ready because we had no tools. And you could see he wasn't ready. And then I think he got concussed at one tight stage because the way he attacks the contest. He did the hamstring and the calf this year, which, the start of the season, they're a little bit behind it. But it's like...
soft tissue is there, probably understandable. Yeah,
yeah, but it's like the shoulder one was an impact. It wasn't 2 shoulders. It was 1 shoulder was an impact.
What did he impact with? A fence?
He impacted with the ground, didn't he? But I just think sometimes players can have bad runs. Because if you sort of look at him and go, oh, he's fragile. Well, what about McStay? McStay came to Collingwood and missed half the year with a finger injury. Came back, did a knee. Came back this season, did a knee. Is he fragile also? Is it just sort of like sometimes players have that as really shit runs? I mean, Curnow missed 2 years of football, didn't he? Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's actually fragile. I just think he's had sort of some bad luck, and the circumstances I don't think have really accommodated him to get the best out of him. So hopefully they can sort of keep him upright. Finley McRae, Finwatch.
His first half was really, really good. He sort of faded a little bit in the second half of the game. Do you think it's fitness?
Yeah, that's the first time I've seen him where I thought, okay, you may belong at this level.
Yeah, no, his first half was really, really encouraging. Yeah. And I think a lot of it come down to Nick being tagged out of the game, that he's become such a focal point in that midfield the last couple of weeks that Finn's probably almost playing an understudy type of role and just not getting the opportunities you normally get. That certainly Crisp was a far better midfielder this week.
Crisp was
as well. So I think maybe Nick should fuck off every week now.
Well, a friend made mention that too. He just sort of said, they focused on Nick to the detriment of seeing anyone else, and everyone else sort of got away. I don't know what, not bagging him, but Lockie Sullivan seemed to have sort of a quieter first half. He seems to come into the games later as the bit of pace goes on.
It really mattered in the last or the third quarter. He really become prominent.
Yeah, so
some of his inside work was actually quite aggressive. It was good. Good to see.
I don't know if... I can't tell, who knows, maybe it's Hayden Skipworth, we could ask him, but I don't know if they're occasionally using him just to block and that sort of stuff, or just to get in the way of the opponent, and that's sort of taken away statistically from his game, because he's playing the blocks and all that sort of stuff. But, Finley McRae, I thought that was the best I've seen him play, and that first half, he actually looked like he had been around for 50 games or something. I hope that they play him a little bit more as a mid, because the few times they've played him this year, they've played him as that sort of half forward. And, people brag about that West Coast game. It's like, it's West Coast. You got 3 goals, great, but it's West Coast. So, you want to see him be given more of those opportunities because, I'll jump ahead. Like Tom Mitchell, 6 to 8 weeks out with whatever
was the plantar fasciitis or something, but they operate on his foot or something?
Well, apparently that's the last option to operate. 6 to 8 weeks, that puts him round 20, roughly. He's not going to come back earlier than that. So I don't even know if he'll be back for the year, because he might come back and just be, that's it. Like, it's going to take you another 2 weeks to run, so that's 10 weeks. And I don't trust, I'm not bagging Collingwood because all clubs do it, but I don't trust their estimates on the time. Like, Mason Cox is another one. They said the other week they said 5 to 7 weeks, but originally they said 6 weeks, 2 weeks earlier than that. So all those sort of figures are pretty amorphous. The same with...
I watched the injury report this week, and they said Gablik's still a couple of weeks away.
Well, it'd be good to get him back in the ruck. Charlie Dean, down back.
Yeah.
What do you think of him? Because
did he fuck anything up? I don't think he fucked anything up. I think it's a measure of a backman, too, that if you aren't doing anything calamitous, you're travelling well, because he did a couple of nice things.
Yeah. I thought the thing that really helped him was Moore was good. That was the best game I've seen him play in about 3 years. Good. And Maynard was a fucking beast.
Yeah.
The shit Maynard was doing to them, the way he was tackling them hard. Kane Corns was going on about like he expected. He's going, oh, look, they're shaking his hand pre-game. It was like, they all do that, you idiot.
What did you make of the racist booing of Maynard?
People just don't like orcs.
What's an orc?
Yeah, but the way he played, the one that I really loved was when Fritsch tried to tackle him and he just ran through him and Fritsch bounced off and he just sort of looked like, what the fuck hit me? And Maynard just sort of kept running. But to have those sort of players play with that intensity, I thought Noble was goodish. I thought he did some really bad things. He slipped over a lot.
Yeah, there was a few players that slipped over. There's a couple of times you're thinking, what are you doing with your stops?
Yeah.
Yeah, did you make the right choice when you went out there? But it was Melbourne players as well that are sort of misjudged. I mean, it's a cold, wet December day. We touched the ground and whatever happened next. But it just seemed to be a bit slippery, too much slippery. We didn't have any rain or anything. A bit of light drizzle maybe in the morning, but it was an odd one. But
just having that 4 or 5 of that defensive six, it's probably Quayner's better game for a while. So to get that system working, it's probably a lot.
I thought defences as a whole was really resilient the entire game. They counted so much because I think there was a period there.
What did they count?
Up to 3. A little bit of the first. Probably majority of the first quarter. We started well and then sort of went a little bit quiet, and a fair chunk of the middle of the second quarter that I think they dominated the run of play.
Yeah.
Melbourne, they just failed to convert, but most of the entries that came into the 50, we more or less handled really well or applied enough pressure that most of their shots were probably under a fair bit of pressure and rushed. I did see some sort of graph on the couch or something the other night where most of their shots were over in the top left or bottom left hand, whichever way you look at it.
Why was that graph on the couch?
It was because I had the magic marker out. Most of their shots were taken deep in that top 50 of the arc, which sort of says that no matter where they weren't given that freedom to run inside of their 50, and they were their shots were well and truly.
There's a bit of luck too. I mean, because they hit the post several times in a row.
There's no luck in that.
Luck for us. And I know, everyone, and not bagging him, but there's the smother that Howe did, which was really a shit kick because Howe went to smother it and it's hit him in the rib cage, so it was just a really shit kick straight into him, and it rebounded directly to we actually had a bit of luck. It's like the one that Nick Dacos took a marker. I can't remember the Melbourne play, but he just tried to soccer it clear and it went straight to Nick Dacos. So I thought we actually had a bit of luck. I mean, I know people say you work hard, you get those things happening.
If you work hard, you get those things happening.
But if you look at ultimately the score was 14-5, so I mean we were fucking insanely accurate, and that was 6-15. And if you look at
there was one stage of the game that might have been early in the fourth where there were 17 scoring shots apiece, and they were 4-13, and we were 14-5 or something or whatever. Equates to 17, but it was a fair divide in between the accuracy.
So I mean, you look at it the first quarter was 3-1 to 4 points, and then again that fourth shot was that Keziah Pickett when you had the shot and it was paid a goal, and then the goal review actually pinged it back.
It's the first time for everything.
Usually it happens to us. So they went from 1-3 to 4 points, and then like I said, they hit the post a couple of times. So in the second quarter they kicked 2-2. And we kicked 4-2. And then in the next quarter, the third quarter, they kicked 2-5. And we kicked 4 straight. So, I mean, this accuracy thing, geez, you want to try it? And again, I think that's a little bit, that's because Krueger straightened them up. And also I think because
He kicked 3 straight, didn't he?
Yeah. But then you had things, because I think Krueger was there. Frampton got a snap goal, which, I think...
That was a great one too. It was really, really.
I love how angry he is. It's just the way he pushes. But I can't remember who it was, but there was some Melbourne player complaining after the ball went out of bounds, and Frampton was nowhere near him, just sort of jogging past. But then as he jogged past, he just shoved him in the back, fuck off you. Frampton or Dean, if you get players back from injury, who do you go with in defence?
I think Frampton's probably got the edge in terms of sonority and that sort of thing. I think they'd err on the side of that and stick with him.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Frampton. Let me ask you something.
And again, I think the aggressiveness would be a fairly big tipping factor. He has presence.
Yeah. I mean, so the
Petrarca... he's not a fucking forward, but...
I was going to go to that. I mean, just go to the Petrarca thing quickly. So, gets kneed in the ribs by Darcy Moore.
Did he apologise?
I think he got suspended for 6 weeks.
He backed into his kneecap.
Isn't that funny? Because literally, it's funny. Moore elbows him in the ribs, knees him in the ribs. if Moore need him in their head, they're basically saying now that could be a case to answer.
Yeah,
and it's the same outcome.
But yeah, so what was the injuries? Was 4 broken ribs, a ruptured spleen,
and the slightly
internal bleeding. It was just there was no end to it. Apparently, they were picking up the pieces at the end to put onto the trolley to rebuild him. So yeah, I mean, if you looked at the outcome of that, it's an innocuous hit at the end of the day. You know, it's sort of. I mean, I guess if the intent is there and you genuinely hurt someone, you've got something to answer for. But sometimes accidents happen.
Well, I've just been saying that all the time. Some shit happens, you know.
You can't always measure the outcome on the incident that caused it or the accident that caused it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because you look at like the Maynard bump on not the bump, but like the smother that turned into a collision on Brayshaw. And now they're saying, you know, they changed the rules, so, well, you're liable if you do something like that. That's just a pure football act.
So the thing that should be with the booing too around that is like, I'm sure I read this somewhere that Brayshaw had about 10 concussions in his career. Yeah. Did Maynard cause them all?
Yeah, I know.
So why is he held accountable for ending his career? I mean, this is just it's an accumulative effect.
Well, as Turtle points out repeatedly, like a little bit earlier, Brayshaw cops a hit in the pocket, which they should have really checked and taken Brayshaw off and seen if he was okay. So you don't even know if it was purely the Maynard hit or whether he'd been dazed a little bit earlier, or even if the earlier one hadn't concussed him, if it dazed him enough that he wasn't aware enough or whatever. I mean, not trying to, you know, exonerate Maynard, but it is a football act. It kills me that all the geniuses on opposition supporters who were fucking crowing about Sam Darcy running into Maynard again. He's got some of his own medicine. Why isn't he couldn't change his path because he was in flight and all this sort of shit. Like, all he did was drawing parallels between two totally fucking different incidents. I have no idea where I was going to rant with this, but it was something about, you know, I have no idea. Fill the silence.
I think you finished.
It'll come to me eventually. Yeah, but like you said, I mean, sometimes I think you have to just realise shit happens. And it was actually interesting though that Brayshaw's brother talked about the Sam Darcy hit on Maynard, and he said what I said. It should have been like 4 to 6 weeks. He goes, just a totally cowardly act from behind. Had no design other than to take Maynard out. It was just a shit weak act. Anyway, totally lost it. So Frampton playing up forward had 4 kicks, no handballs. He's still got a handball, Frammers. 2 marks. And he kicked a goal. And 3 tackles. It's not a great return, but that's actually what they get out of Mason Cox playing down there too. And I think if they swapped it around in terms of like if they had Cox, Ruck or whoever, Darcy Cameron would get about the same return.
Mm.
What's the solution there? Do you play a forward like Ash Johnson or McStay when he comes back and sacrifice the ruck? Or do you play a specialist ruck and then sacrifice the return up forward?
You would have to look, because I think Cox is out for a while, you would have to look at the output of Krueger over the next few weeks, because he's obviously not going to go anywhere. At current showing, I think you're going to get more goals out of someone like Krueger if he played aside or next to McStay and Miacek in that one forward line. Then Cox would as a relief ruck drifting back. Who'd ruck though in that instance to help Darcy carry?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the options would be, going on the current availability. So it's either Frampton, you keep playing him in that role, and this is what you're going to get. You're going to get 5 possessions from him. Maybe you'll have a day out where you'll get 6 possessions or whatever. Or you go, let's just try Ash Johnson. We might get more out of him as a forward, but we're going to lose something in the ruck when he's there. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I'd risk Ash Johnson.
I don't want them to throw Krueger in the ruck because it's like you go back to the years of Anthony Rocker. I remember Hot Rod made a really good point because that was a stage of like Rocker, Warren Treadray, and Jonathan Brown were the big centre forwards, and Hot Rod just made the point. He goes, Rocker has to actually relieve ruck at times. Treadray and Brown don't.
Yeah.
And then you throw Krueger into that requirement to ruck. And it's like, well, you might lose something of his forward output. I reckon that happened with Chris Dawes in 2012 when Buckley was rucking him and then playing him forward. I know idiots will go, oh, well, someone like Boyd was doing it at the Bulldogs. Boyd was the number 1 draft pick. Dawes was a good battler, but that's what he was. You'd rather Krueger just settle into that position and was just allowed to focus on being a forward. And then, like Frampton's basically the sacrifice at the moment. But is that what you persevere with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're gonna have you're still talking about having Frammers down back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it depends.
And
Like on the
pinching in the ruck.
No, I'm at the currently without anyone coming back. Right now, do you persevere with Frampton up forward?
No. I think push comes to shove, they'd drop Dean and put Frammers down back.
And then who does the ruck?
Well, that's again, how many weeks are we away from Cox? We know.
Oh, well, 6 weeks at least.
So you're going to do something that's more or less long term. Dean's on the ruck.
Well, look,
geez.
Any of the players who are coming back around 2021, I'd be really worried about even bringing them back in. And I know, like, some of them are like Mitchell and that. You'd have to judge them on where their fitness is. I don't know if you remember 209. We had that season where, like, Dawes came in and Gary Richards and Chris Bryan were doing the rucking. Fraser was out injured. And we were just rocking. And then toward the end of the year, like about 3-4 weeks left, we had all these players coming back from injury, and Malthouse just brought them all back, and it just killed our momentum. And they looked terrible. Like Rocker looked terrible in the finals. Like I think Wellingham was another one they brought back and was really struggling. So I reckon come to around 2021, if they're winning and they're up in the top 4 or whatever, they might have to actually look at it and go, well, do we really want to just rush these guys back in? Or do we just want to go with what we know and just,
It's good to have that dilemma, though.
Oh, it'd be good for your change.
Did Cameron rucked the entire game, didn't he?
Oh no, the other Frampton gave him a few chop outs when it was around him.
Yeah, but he didn't go into the centre or anything like that. But then Gorn pretty much predominantly rucks the entire game. The same thing. Someone else will chop out around the stoppages and stuff like that for a bit of a rest. Look. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to watch this space. I think it may be in that scenario then that you do for the next couple of weeks, leave him up forward. He's not producing much, but he's taking a defender
but this
out of
is
the game,
again,
I suppose.
This is where you look at it. Like I said, do you play him there, not get much of a forward return, then play him as right? Or do you bring like Ash Johnson and go, we might get something more out of him as a forward?
I still think I'd be trusting Frammers more than Johnson at the moment.
I mean, if I brought Johnson in, I'd push Frampton down back and drop Dean. But, like, the one thing with Johnson, like I said last week, is when he was actually running up to the wings, he looked like he was sort of getting into the game because he had that freedom to run around. So I actually think that could actually benefit him if that's the way they want to go. Let me ask you something. If all things are equal and we don't get more injuries and shit, what's the forward setup look like if you have Krueger, McStay, Myercheck, and Johnson all available? So Johnson's obviously out of the equation.
I mean,
do you play the free talls?
It would be too tall, I think.
Well, I mean, interestingly, Krueger, I mean, he's not going to be as fast as a Hill or whatever, but Krueger is pretty quick for a big guy. And my check is pretty quick also. Now, McStay coming off a knee injury is not going to have that mobility and speed and all that sort of shit. So
I think what he's got working in his favour is when he came back for the finals last year, he had an immediate impact, and he's a lot of the reason why we made the grand final.
No, I didn't mean about like keeping him out.
But I think that he's a given coming in. So I think he's the one. He's probably the first of the three almost selected.
I just meant though in that like you. I'm not saying to keep McStay out. I'm just sort of saying you play McStay. But do Myercheck and Krueger have enough mobility and speed to provide a little bit of that forward pressure?
The thing is, I think Mio pushes up the ground a fair bit. He'd have to be playing that high centre forward role, and then you'd have to have Krueger and McStay. McStay pretty much, I think, will play out of the square. You've then got that roaming tall with some closing speed in Krugs. You could probably make it almost work.
Well, that's what I mean. I thought the really good thing, and again, it's probably the assistant coaches and the tactical analysis they did, is it really looked... The one thing they did seem to do really well was the forwards just didn't get in each other's path. They were leading to different areas and stuff. So like when Krueger ran, he was never like running into Frampton or into Hoskin Elliott. And Hoskin Elliott was coming up forward also too, up the wings and that sort of stuff. So like they actually gave him separation. So if you had those three down there, I mean, it'd be really interesting to see, to have three talls. Because Myercheck would probably be in his ideal role then, which is like the sort of more the running, mobile third tall. And then you play like guys like Hill and Schultz and McCreary as the three real tackling machines. Because the other thing too is you have those three, the talls to kick it long to, and they bring it to ground, you'd hope that the three smalls would be able to mop up.
Well, there was a couple of times I think that when Krueger couldn't take a mark, he pushed the ball down the ground in front of him, which is exactly what you want your big boy to do, and he's clearly not going to do take or surrender a contested mark.
I mean, the thing with Frampton, like if the ball hits the ground, he's pretty much useless. Whereas, like I said, Krueger and Mychek would have that sort of mobility. So it would be a nice problem. Elliott's another one where, I mean, he was mooted to retire. And I don't know if Collingwood just sort of came out with a little bit of PR to go, no, we're trying to get him back. But
didn't sound good though. The foot turning black. I mean, I don't think that's a normal sort of thing to have happen.
It wasn't the bubonic plague time.
So I don't know. I think probably more than likely he's 31. That the end may come. And I've said it before that he's so crash and bash that it's just as he's getting older, he's taken longer to get up and sort of recover. I mean, his output though this year has been pretty good.
He's been really good
in terms of his goal productivity, but it's hard to know. I think the thing is, if it's going to be something that's going to fuck you up for life, I don't know whether he's the sort of bloke who comes across that he loves football more than actually walking.
I must love it a fair bit to come back from bloody all the shit he's come back.
Oh, no doubt, but I don't think, he's not your sort of forefront of the club or anything like that. I think he seems pretty relaxed. I think that's the sort of guy that would say, well, fuck it, I'd rather be, walking around as a 50-year-old than hobbling on a stump.
Interesting thing, though.
Maybe I'll call it a day.
If he comes back around 20, and again, that's projected, he would have been out for like about 12 weeks. And do you bring him back and just sort of go, well, he's got the pre-seasons behind him to some extent, he'll fall into the groove?
The hard thing for guys like that is, and I think even Mitchell to a certain extent, is you're actually sitting in a perfect spot at the moment, which I actually probably a couple of weeks ago didn't think was going to be possible, in that we're equal fourth, we're out on percentage, which is always going to be an issue for us, I think, as long as we're staying in that balanced ledger.
We just need another draw.
We've got North this week, and then we've got 2 weeks off, and then we've rested most of these blokes that are injured, and then we're going to have an influx of quality, and then you've got to run home to solidifying a top four finish. Would you take risks and bring in? I think by that stage, I think you're probably almost going to have a very settled side.
Well, that's what I was saying before. Is like you disrupted it. That's what they did in 2009. They really disrupted it. He went back to the status quo, and that really fucked up the balance of the side. Fraser was really struggling. Rocker really struggled. There's other players he was bringing back in from injury, and I don't think we were ever on St Kilda or Geelong's level that year, but they both beat us pretty comfortably. I mean, Geelong smashed us. I don't think those other two teams are that far ahead of us, though. I just think that, we really derailed our own momentum, so we were a lot more susceptible. Sidey, going back to the wing.
I mean, look, he's nowhere near as quick and evolved as he used to be, but he has his little moments. I mean, that mark was awesome. I mean, you don't want to talk about the absolute clusterfuck of a kick after it.
Well, it's funny though, that mark. I mean, it's a great leap, but he ends up marking on the way down when he's about a foot from the ground.
He did get up high, but he's dropped pretty quick and marked about halfway down the bloke's back. I mean, it was an impressive moment for him. I mean, was he 912 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you judge him by his size?
Oleg Markov seemed to go for a few runs and sort of seemed a bit more like his last year version.
Yeah. Look, the thing is, I don't think anyone across the game you could fault. I'm sure you'll find someone. But I thought it was like he started slow. He had a couple of poor decisions, poor execution moments, but he got back into the groove of the game. And I'll qualify this is like I said to the boys, at the start of, or coming into the start of the last quarter, is the last 2 weeks I think we clearly faded at the end of the games, whether it's lack of experience, the pace of the game, everything caught up and we were overrun. Coming into the start of the fourth on this one, there was just an absolute liveliness about them all, and that's across the board, even the ones that are new to it, young, small amount of game time, were looking like they were doing something. Everyone was contributing in their own little way, that it didn't look like we were going to just grind to a halt and Melbourne had run over us. It looked like that we'd sustain, and it was more looking like the side we are when we're up and about. That's closest I think I've seen it for a while, and that's not a detrimental comment. It's more about the fact that we've been fielding half a fucking VFL side for the last month. It was a really encouraging performance in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it, like, Krueger comes in and gives you the performance of an established senior player, even though he's actually relatively inexperienced.
He's only 24.
But I mean, even games like he hasn't played that much. And Johnson goes out who's obviously struggling, so you're sort of losing one VFL quality player for an AFL player, and then you bring Hoskin Elliott in, and he was really good too.
No, he was exceptionally good.
And the thing with Hoskin Elliott, this is why we both pan him. It's like that's what you're capable of. So
don't fucking vanish for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then people go, they'll go, oh, this is why we love him. It's like, oh, great, but I want him to do it regularly. He's got the skill, he's got the ability. It's just the output is sporadic, and like all the players, I fucking want them to do. I don't give a shit who it is. Fucking anyone who I bag and they prove me wrong, awesome. But you want that input, because like those two players came in, gave you AFL level input, which it was almost like the last 2 weeks against Fremantle and Dogs. You just had that little bit too much inexperience, and it tipped in the opposition's favour both times as the game went on.
Yep.
Whereas this time you had the two AFL level input from these two players, and it went totally the other way. And that's why I think the guys like Dean and McRae and all that could actually look a little bit better. And like I said, I thought Markov looked a little bit better than what he had been. Quaynor looked a lot better. So and then he sort of had like guys like Bobby Hill and that were probably the ones who I don't want to say struggled, but you didn't get the input. I'm not bagging them, just sort of saying you always get like a few players who sort of fall on the outer there, but they're players with a lot of quality who can actually sort of just inject a little bit of excitement when needed.
I think there's a sort of, he certainly drifted up the ground, but he has fucking impact, Bobby, when he's around the ball. He's electric.
Yeah.
Pace and the evasiveness. It really gives you, he's not getting a high return on the scoreboard.
That fend off he did to Pickett at the start was so good. It was like, just fuck off.
But it gives you options to keep the ball moving into your forward 50, and I think he's performing that high up the ground really well at times.
One thing I'd like to see him do is just say to him, you got the pace, just back yourself sometimes. I would rather you run. And like there's a couple times he was charging, and he probably got rid of it a little bit earlier than I thought he should. And like there's players like a Noble went for Noble I remember was sprinting through the centre, and the guy was right on his back, and Noble decided, well, that's the time I'll have a bounce.
Oh yeah, that was a bad mistake.
For someone like Noble, it's like, mate, first option. But for like Hill, who's got the pace and the class, I'd say, I don't mind you backing yourself. It's like the old Peter Dacos thing that Lee Matthews used to say of these torps. Like, you can kick him, so you can back yourself. If they fuck up, then you will give you a shit. But, like, he could do it. So if Hill, I wouldn't mind if they just say go for it. Any final thoughts about this game?
No. Look, I come away from the game, and I reiterated this in a text this morning that it was a really fucking good performance.
Oh, it was awesome performance.
It was a little bit out of the blue. It was exactly what needed to be done. And it's pretty much set up a season for another full crack at the back end of the year. I think if we'd lost this, and we're expected to probably win against North, it puts you a little bit down. We're back down in the mix of the bottom end of the 8. Here you're in a place where you can really probably have a serious crack at top 4. I think there's a couple of sides up in the top 4 that are pretending to be there, and the opportunity's ours if we wanted to take it.
Yeah, I think the top 4, like Sydney's clearly above.
Oh, well, they aren't going anywhere. They're staying there.
I think, according to them, to Doska, Carlton's draw opens up in the second half of the year, so they should probably solidify their spot in there.
There's a fucking easy run home, isn't it?
Yeah, and then you got like teams like Essendon who have struggled against quality sides. There's Geelong, you don't really know what you're getting with them at the moment. You don't know if they're quality and they're just pacing themselves, or if they're really just falling off a cliff. And then Port, we know, is like a pretend team. Probably ideally, as much of a heart attack as it would cause to really jump ahead, you'd want to finish third against Carlton at the MCG first final. You wouldn't want to go to the SCG for your first final, unless you did knock them over and that would throw them onto the other end, and they could cause some havoc, but take the long way around and tie themselves out with a couple of Victorian trips and shit. But that's going way, way ahead. It's just, the one thing is, like, people sort of do the calculations of if they lose this and they lose this and it will be top 4. It's just like, just fucking keep winning. The rest takes care of it itself.
Well, that's exactly that. And I think we've put ourselves in the best possible position now to do that. So, Well done.
Let me ask you something.
Why don't you ask me something?
Adelaide struggling. I find this sort of funny. So Matthew Nicks is probably under pressure. Imagine Adelaide got in the finals last year if only a goal was paid instead of being paid a point. So that fuck up with the AFL was last year, the goal umpire, when Keys had the shot and was paid a point. It could cost Nicks his job. And, I mean, Adelaide might have come off a finals appearance and went, yeah, okay, this is where we're at, this is on the bill. So I actually just found that, butterfly effect of how much that could actually fuck up the club.
But I think, I don't know, did that inflate their position where they thought they were going to be this year? Or, just missing out?
I might have, I don't know. I mean, but they might have had the momentum. I mean, you don't know. I mean, you change one little thing, so I said butterfly effect. But it's, if you look at Nicks, he's been there about 12 years now. So it actually might cost him ultimately. Well, whereas if he had that one finals appearance, they might have said, okay.
You can always fuck off back to Fleetwood Mac.
Let me ask you this. Rising star. Harley Reid and Sam...
Well, I think you and I are a chance for it at the rate of attrition.
So Harley Reid and Sam Darcy are now ineligible.
See you later.
Do you think...
Harvey Harrison can win it? Absolutely.
Actually, I forgot to mention Harrison. How good was he?
He was fucking very good.
Yeah. And that one kick, I can't remember who kicked it, but he stood under it and he knew he was probably near impact. And he just stood there bravely and took it and then kicked straight. Anyway, you know what he looks like? He always reminds me of one of the friends in a Jaws movie who gets eaten early. But anyway, Jaws 2 maybe.
Yeah, I think, definitely, because he wears a bandana.
Yeah. Harley Reid and Sam Darcy, should they be ineligible? Should the Rising Star be a best and fairest comp, or should it just be a best comp?
Oh, I think there's still room for the fairest in these things. I don't necessarily think it's a great look to say, well, we've deemed you the best, but as long as you don't thug act a few people too hard, we'll look away. I think you've got to have it both ways. You've got to be the best and the fairest.
Well, then would you look at the reports and say, the Reid one was a tackle, which is just deemed dangerous nowadays?
Yeah, but you know that. It's not like you're unaware.
Yeah, but I mean, in a lot of those tackles, it's instinctive to just sort of go, well, I just grabbed him, I'm just trying to stop him, I've got to contend with his weight, his momentum, all that sort of shit. But would you sort of say, with the tribunal... okay, tackles we're not going to consider unfair, just going to consider them unlucky, but what Darcy did we'll consider unfair because it's actually a malicious strike.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, do you want to see Reid win it on the back of doing 6 of those type of tackles in a year when you know that they've been outlawed? I think there's a balance there that you've got to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that tackle, I thought he was just unlucky. I thought it's one of those ones, you see the sling tackles now, a lot of them are just sort of disappearing, but a lot of times it's just momentum, and it's just I don't know what you expect it to do other than if you can't tackle, then you're just basically saying I've got to let the opponent go because I can't stop him otherwise. So that's what I'm just saying. I think the tackles are, I think you can get genuinely dangerous tackles, but I think sometimes momentum and that sort of shit just makes it look a lot worse, and the tackler doesn't have a lot of power.
Probably the only thing that I was just thinking of as you were talking there that derails what I was saying is that at the end of the year, and I don't know whether it actually matters to the individuals or not, but at the end of the year, your third best player is going to be crowned the Rising Star, which whoever they are going to be miles behind Darcy and Reid. It's I'm not sure what point I'm trying to make, but it's always going to look funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's I remember when Robert Harvey won the Brownlow, the second one, sorry, and I love Harvey, but I remember, I think it was Chris Grant won it, but was suspended that year, and Harvey went up and said it's a hollow victory, and I think there's an element of that. It's I'm only here because the two other guys got suspended, and like I said, the Darcy one was malicious. That was just, you just went to take a player out. Was the dangerous tackles. I mean, fuck it. Half these dangerous tackles, they go up to the tribunal, and on the day they were paid dropping the ball, and then the tribunal's going, well, it was dangerous ultimately because the guy hit his head or whatever. So I just think is a dangerous tackle actually an unfair thing when it's, anyway.
Well, they're the rules.
Anyway, give it to Harrison. Playing North.
Yep. All right. See you next week.
Tips? Is there any danger in this game?
There's always danger with Collingwood.
So North won against...
Well, they're coming off a win, so they're a danger. It's a danger game now. No, I think we just win this comfortably, move on to the bye. I hope, though, that the club doesn't take that attitude.
Yeah.
Which I don't think they will. No, I think that North... they're buzzers. Are they a problem side for us, like Hawthorn? I don't think so. No, we should just win and win comfortably. I think we keep doing more of what we've done now. I think that we'd take a lot of confidence, probably more out of this win than North will over West Coast. At the end of the day, they fucking beat West Coast. So it's not a bad effort over there, but still, it's West Coast.
I'd hope that...
Anytime I think now you take Harley Reid out of the side, they're half a fucking side anyway. So, no, I think we do this comfortably. I think we win by 10 goals.
You'd also have, like, North...
The side will be unchanged because it has to pretty much remain as it is. No one's coming back, as Fly said. I think we stick with what's working.
I'd probably drop Bytel and maybe give that the Martira run.
Well, they might do that, yeah.
You know, you'd hope North got their win and we've done that, so we can not try next week. And then Clarkson will come out and rip shit into them and swear at an umpire and get fined $4 million and suspended 28 weeks.
So it's just another day, really.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, let's just knock this on the head, sit in a pretty spot and move into the bye, get all our really good players back.
All right. That's it from us. You'll hear us next week. Later.
No, not next week. We're having a bye.
After North, you doofus.
After the bye, doofus, we're having a bye.